Kakashi looked at the ceiling above his head with thoughts swirling around in his mind like fish in a pond. What his father said made sense, but he still couldn't help but think back to what Zetsu had as well. If he really could make it so that there was no more pain in the world, why wouldn't he at least want to see what it was all about? If what Zetsu said was actually worth hearing, then maybe he could tell his dad about it too. Strangely enough, the very person he was thinking about happened to be watching him, thinking pretty hard there. Kakashi? Kakashi jumped again. You've gotta stop doing that? Zetsu moved so that he was straight across from Kakashi. Now, about that offer. Kakashi was going to at least hear him out. Kakashi needs to hear more about this offer. How exactly are you going to bring peace to the world, and are you gonna kill Kakashi's friends? Zetsu figured those would be his first two questions. Fair enough. To answer your first question, we intend to use the power of the tailed beasts, and your second question. Kakashi stopped him. That last part was too vague. Wait, how are you going to use the power of the tailed beasts? Zetsu frowned. We aren't supposed to tell you that. If you choose not to join us, it'll be better if you don't know our full plan. Now about your second question, we don't have to. There have been cases of people surviving tailed beast extraction if there were competent mednines around. Kakashi wasn't sure about this. Dad said that it's important that we believe the idea that we can make the world a better place. Zetsu nodded. Yes, he's very optimistic that way. Your father is good man Kakashi, but he's never truly been able to truly protect those he cared about. Kakashi didn't like where he was going with this. What did you mean? Zetsu started to tell him, the fourth Hokage, Kushina Uzumaki, Kakashi Hatake, and even his own mother. Kakashi's ear perked up at that. What was that last part? Zetas could see that he had taken the bait. Your grandmother wasn't able to escape the Uchiha clan like he was. Kakashi knew his father had left the clan, but he always thought that there was some kind of disagreement. What are you talking about? Kakashi's really getting confused here. Zetsu knew when to leave the boy hanging. Why don't you ask your father that question? See you tomorrow, Kakashi. Kakashi was about to yell for him to stay, but it was too late. He was really getting tired of not knowing what was going on. Kakashi walked into his father's office needing to have some kind of clue as to what the truth behind all of his was. His father looked up as soon as he walked in. Kakashi, how's it going? Kakashi didn't actually answer that. Dad, why'd you leave the Uchiha clan? Obito was beyond surprised at the boy's question. That's a very long story, and I'm not entirely sure I want you to hear it. Kakashi wasn't going to let him get off that easy. No, you've been protecting Kakashi from everything bad in the world since the day he was born. He wants the truth. Obito had never seen his son like this before. Kakashi, where is all this coming from? Kakashi gave him a somewhat honest answer on that one. When Ino-chan died, Kakashi's whole world changed. It's not as nice as he thought it was. He wants to start hearing the truth and to see what the world is really like. Obito sighed. The world has a very rough exterior, Kakashi, but it's a good place once you get down to it. You really want the truth? No holding back? Kakashi gave a hard nod and Obito began to tell his story. How his father used to beat him, how he found out he had a big brother, his mother killing his father then committing suicide, everything. He'd even told him about having to kill the first Kakashi when he was younger to explain the part with the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. It wasn't a particularly happy story, but Kakashi needed to hear it. When Obito finished, Kakashi looked at the ground and said, the Uchiha wasn't a very nice clan, was it, Dad? Obito had to agree. No, it wasn't. I know that all of this must come as shock to you, but you've got to look at the bigger picture. Everything worked out for the best. If all of that hadn't happened, I might never have had you. Kakashi wasn't particularly proud of the clan he came from, but he was glad that he finally knew the truth. While he was thinking about all of this, Obito asked, are you ready for tomorrow, bud? With the funeral and everything, I mean? Kakashi had almost forgotten about that. It felt like a punch in the gut to even mention it. Yeah. Obito knew his son had a lot on his mind right now. Kakashi, if you need to talk. Kakashi walked over to the door and walked out. Kakashi's fine. He just has to think some things out, that's all. Obito didn't let him leave. Do you know why I took the job as Hokage, Kakashi? Kakashi didn't see what that had to do with anything. Wasn't it to protect the village? Obito told his son, partially, but there's more to it than that. When you're the Hokage, you've got to make the most important decisions. Any of these decisions could lead to the death of those I care about. When I was offered the job, I took it for 3 reasons. 1, to protect the village and my family. 2, to try and make this village the best it can be. Finally, to make sure that no one else would be forced to have this kind of pressure on them. Kakashi gave his dad a funny look. What does that mean? Obito was glad he asked. It means that some people aren't strong enough to make some of the decisions I do or have to do some of the things I do. Having to tell Ino's parents what happened to her and having to tell them that I was one who sent her on that mission was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life. I couldn't bring myself to force anyone else to do that. That's why we keep fighting when we lose those who are close to us, Kakashi. We go through whatever pain we have to so that those around us don't get hurt. You've got to stay strong for your friends. They just lost Ino. They couldn't handle losing you as well. Please don't shut them out. Kakashi wasn't sure he fully understood what that meant, but he was pretty sure that he got the general idea of what his father was trying to say. He walked out of his father's office with even more on his mind than when he had entered. The funeral came faster than any of them had wanted it to. There were several tear-filled speeches and choked-up shinobi throughout the day. Kakashi had thought about making a little speech about Ino himself, but just couldn't bring himself to do it. While Kakashi thought about his deceased girlfriend, Inoichi was over having a word with Obito. Hokage-san, may I have a word with you? Obito nodded, hoping Inoichi wasn't holding a grudge against him. Of course. What can I do for you? Inoichi wasn't sure how to say this. It's about Kakashi. As you know, the Yamanakas specialize in mind-based jutsu. Obito of course knew that. Yes. That's why we use you in our integration unit so much. Inoichi really didn't want to say this. We also study psychology very heavily. I've been watching Kakashi over the years and of course over the past few days. To put it simply, I'm worried. Obito didn't like where he was going with this. He seems a little upset, but I don't there's anything major. Inoichi knew he'd say something along those lines. He shut people out, but that's common when you lose someone close to you for the first time. However, he was always a little bit strange before all of this. He was balanced, but just sort of off. It only got worse as he had a bit of sheltered life, especially for a shinobi. Now that the way he sees the world has crumbled, he's going to be very impressionable and easy to persuade. I'm just saying to keep an eye on him and make sure he doesn't get the wrong idea about things. Obito had to admit, that made sense. He'd have to be sure to tell Rin about this. He didn't want Kakashi mind falling into the wrong hands. He had one last question. Not that I'm not grateful for your advice, but why are you worried about Kakashi right now with, well you know? Inoichi took a sip of the drink he had in his hand. Keeping myself focused on my work is the only thing that's keeping me from crawling into a hole and just staying there right now. Obito cringed. Well, at least you found something to keep yourself occupied. Inoichi looked down at his empty glass and mumbled, I suppose. The funeral had been 2 days ago and Kakashi was finally starting to feel a little better, like maybe everything would be okay. He'd almost forgotten about that Zetsu person, almost. He'd been sitting next to Pon just kind of starting at, trying to keep himself calm. However, he soon heard a voice that was starting to get all too familiar. Did you ask your father about why he left the clan? Kakashi still wasn't sure how he felt about this guy. Yeah, and Kakashi's kind of curious how you knew about all of that. Zetsu chuckled, there's several things that we know about that would make you curious. Like we said, your father is a good man, but he wasn't able to save any of them. Do you know why? Kakashi said sarcastically, because he wasn't even born in time to save his big brother? Zetsu rolled his eyes, very funny. No, he couldn't save them because he didn't have the heart to do what he needed to do. That's where the Akatsuki are different. We're doing things others can't do, but need to be done if we're to have peace in this world. Kakashi found himself thinking about how similar that was to what his father had said. Kakashi isn't sure he could bring himself to do that stuff either. Zetsu gave one final push. If we're successful, everyone you care about will be happy forever. However, they can't bring themselves to do what has to be done to achieve it. We play the villains so that others can be happy. This is your chance to make sure your friends are never hurt again. I'll be here again at midnight. If you're not here, then I'll assume you've refused our offer. Think about it, Kakashi. Kakashi watched him leave with his head almost hurting. So many things ran through his mind. What his father had said, what had happened to Ino, this chance to bring peace to the world. He sat in the forest for what must have been hours making his decision. In the end, he could see only one logical thing to do. It was midnight, and Mito had gotten up to use the bathroom. She stopped when she saw a white ball of fur hopping up to her. Picking it up, she said, Hey Shiramaru, what are you doing out of your cage? She could see a note stuck to his side and read it out loud. Kakashi is sorry. What's that supposed to mean?